Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, a website designer and business coach for entrepreneurs and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a successful business and stand out in a crowd, you're in the right place. After creating a multiple six-figure-a-year website design business in my 20s, I'm ready to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, branding, website design, mindset, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. Do you understand how trademarks relate to your online business? I totally didn't. And to be honest, that's why I wanted to have Joey on the podcast today to educate both me and all of you about the world of trademarks. So trademarks might not seem like the most exciting topic ever, but it's so important to the health of your business. And I seriously believe knowledge is power, and even just learning about and exploring this topic can be so beneficial as you build and grow your business. And a fun thing too, I want to point out here, even though trademarks don't sound exciting. I mean, I don't think they necessarily sound exciting. Joey makes them exciting. And I think this is actually a really fun conversation about a topic that can easily feel boring, overwhelming, and do I even need to know this? Could kind of be a question with it. But I think we make the conversation really fun, and Joey totally gets this space. And so he really brings everything he teaches to light in the format of you guys' business. So Joey's a trademark lawyer for online business owners. Like I said, he really gets this space, and he's helped tons of online entrepreneurs and course creators understand how important trademarks really is and how to call legal dibs on their brand and signature method. So in this episode, we're going to explore what trademarks are and how they apply to your business. And to give you a little scoop of what we're going to talk through, we'll talk about what even is a trademark. So if you're like, I don't even know what that is, I totally get you. So we're going to talk about that. And Joey puts it into really simple terms that'll make it really clear for you. We talk about how a trademark is different from copyrights. And we talk about copyrights quite a bit too, which is going to be super interesting and helpful to you guys. We talk about what we can trademark and what we can't trademark. Also, what should you even trademark? I asked Joey the question of, could our competitors cut in and trademark something we use in our business? How much does it cost to get something trademarked? What is that process like? We talk about common mistakes that Joey sees people make with trademarks and kind of how to avoid those mistakes. And one thing we talk about that for me is an Enneagram 6, I'm always like, okay, tell me the worst case scenario possible here. We talk about some of the horror stories that Joey has personally seen with his clients or friends who had amazing businesses and programs and still do, but didn't trademark, and then what kind of came out of that. And it was super shocking to me and interesting. And those stories, I think, really show the importance of trademarking. And this is actually something I'm working on right now in my business as this episode's airing. So that's really fun. But yeah, I hope this episode benefits you, gives you some knowledge that you didn't have before. And again, I seriously think you'll find that this conversation is about a dense topic, but presented in a really fun way. So without further ado, here's my interview with Joey Vitale. Okay, guys, I'm here with Joey, and I'm so excited about this episode because I was just telling you this, but trademarking is something I'm starting to think about for my own business. So this feels especially relevant, and I'm basically clueless. So I think this is going to be helpful for me as well as everyone listening. I know so many of you guys here right now are probably thinking, I don't really know much about what trademarking is. So we have an expert here. So I'm so excited to chat with you, Joey. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks, Elizabeth, so much for having me. I have to tell you that not only are you not alone in feeling clueless about trademarks, but man, I felt clueless about trademarks when I started. So I did not take trademark class in law school because you don't have to. And then when I started my law firm helping other businesses, I realized that trademarks was this thing people were asking for or not asking for. And the more I looked into it, the more I was like, oh, we talk about trademarks. I think that everybody, even though no one really knows what it means sometimes, there is this sense of trademarks is a concept that we've heard before we started our businesses. So in a lot of ways, like we're more familiar with the word trademark than we are an LLC.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fascinating to think about. Yeah.
And sometimes the biggest problems that business owners run into is growing their business without circling back and being like, I've gotten this far, kind of not wanting to be the dumb person in the room raising the hand about what this is about, but is my understanding of what this means still helpful and effective for me now that the business is growing? And we've pivoted the law firm from being more of a general practice business law firm to being just a trademark law firm, because we really wanted to help people understand that trademarks aren't really what you think they are, and they're a lot more important than you think that they are.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, and with that, like, I'd love for you to tell everyone, what you do, who you serve. We know you're a lawyer. You're in the online business space, which I think is interesting. So you like really get everyone's business here in a unique way as a lawyer. So tell us a little bit about that, what you do, who you serve, all of that.
Yeah, so I'm a trademark lawyer. I like to call myself a brand legitimizer, and I work exclusively on trademarks, really with online business owners especially. So no surprise to you and your listeners, mostly females, mostly heart-centered, purpose-driven, impact-driven entrepreneurs. And the interesting thing about the law that I found, especially in this space of online business, is that we're told in the same way that we have to think about like tax stuff and bookkeeping, this legal stuff has a lot of weight to it, and we want to get it right. And for a lot of people, this can feel really heavy. The truth is, most legal situations are what I call one flat tire scenarios. So think about when you're driving a car and you get a flat tire. Like it's always frustrating. It never happens when you want it to. But if you're lucky and if things are the way they should be, like you've got a spare in the car, you or a friend that you're with knows how to put this, I don't know how cars work, but you put the spare on and you keep driving and you figure it out and it's manageable until you get the new tire. Most legal situations are like that. Like it's not the end of the world, and you just deal with the problem as the business is still running. So if you've got a client who's doing that whole scope creep thing and asking for more from you, and you have to figure that out, or a client who's not paying you on time, or someone who's saying untrue, mean things about you on the internet, or a negative comment on Facebook, or someone's copying you in your work. Those are all legal issues that are frustrating, and you have rights that you can enforce there. But the truth is that you can manage those and still grow your business. Yeah. The weird, frustrating thing about trademarks is that if you run into a trademark problem, it's not a one flat tire situation. It's a 4 flat tire situation. And when it happens, suddenly you're on the other end of a cease and desist letter that says you can't use the name of your business anymore, or your podcast, or whatever that brand is. And you can't market that anymore. You have to come up with a new name. You have to stop the social media. And you can't relaunch until you've rebranded.
Yeah.
And we've just seen too many horror stories across too many industries to not raise more awareness around the fact that, this is a seatbelt you have to put on in your business. We hope nothing bad happens to you, but we've been on the other side of too many awful conversations to make someone feel blindsided by these risks.
Yeah. Well, and you said it really well, but I feel like this is the thing people don't talk about that much. Like we talk about should you be a sole proprietor in LLC? We talk about contracts, people copying you. But yeah, I don't feel like trademarks are as talked about. And I want to hear some of those horror stories so people know What even is at risk, like when you say it's like 4 flat tires versus 1? But before that, how about you explain, in case people are like, I just don't even, like you said, we see trademarks, but we don't even necessarily realize it. Like, what is a trademark exactly?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And the weird thing about trademarks is that the definition isn't very helpful. Like, I could give you the legal definition, but you'd be like, oh, okay, cool, Joey. So I like this example instead. If I were to tell you that there was a company, and this isn't a trick question, that there was a company that owned Hakuna Matata as a trademark, what company do you think owns it?
Oh, Disney?
Disney,
yes. Okay.
yeah.
Wait, what movie is that from? That's not a Joshua book, is it?
It's Lion King.
Oh my gosh, that shows how much I know about Disney stuff.
No.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm a 90s kid, so Lion King is like the first movie I went to with my nanny and all this stuff. So that's the point of a trademark, though.
Okay.
Like the fact that your mind was trying to connect the dots between that phrase and some movie and the company, that is a trademark in action.
Okay.
A trademark is when you hear or see or listen to something and it makes you think of a particular brand or business that's the source of that thing. It's the reason why sometimes when we hear Apple, we think of a tech company. Mm-hmm. It's the reason why when we hear of made up words like Kodak or WordPress or Kajabi, like we think of or Dubsado, like we think of certain things in particular.
Yeah.
And so really strong trademarks, and there's such a thing as like weak trademarks and strong trademarks. Really strong trademarks have that type of bent to them where over time you're known because of that brand. Mm. Especially in the online business world, especially for thriving online businesses, it's really important that you elevate your business from a commodity to a brand. Yeah. And that means when you go down that cereal aisle version of you and your competitors, that you've got some packaging around what you do that's different than the others. Mm.
Yeah.
And maybe depending on your business, maybe that packaging is a unique name that you have for your business. Maybe it's a unique like slogan or kind of catchphrase that you have. Maybe it's the name of a podcast that you've created. If you're a course creator, it could be the name of your program or the signature method that you use. It's not a matter of I'm in this industry, do I need a trademark? It's really a matter of I'm in this industry and this is what I'm building. Which one of these trademarks that I have should I be prioritizing and protecting first?
Okay. Yeah. And with that, like, so you mentioned like our podcast names, our courses, business names in some cases, like what can we trademark? Could I trademark like Elizabeth McCravy, or is that something you can't trademark as an example?
You could trademark anything.
Okay.
Like you literally can trademark anything. As long as your argument is, I deserve trademark rights for it because when people hear it or see it or whatever, they think of me and my services or my products.
Okay.
But that's a good example because if your business is your name, you can get extra strong trademark protections for that maybe, but that might not be the highest priority to protect first.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear here because if you're listening to this, two things might already be happening. Either I'm about to blow your mind with what I'm about to say, or you've been thinking that I'm a really bad trademark attorney up until now because I haven't said this yet, which is that there is a difference between quote unquote getting trademarked and securing your trademark rights with the government.
Okay.
The way that our trademark laws work is that you actually get trademark rights as soon as you start using that word, phrase, logo, whatever it is in commerce. Mm-hmm. And so if you've ever seen that little TM symbol,
yes,
that's a sign that you've got trademark rights, or that company has trademark rights that they're claiming, but they're not registered yet. Mm-hmm. And so it's not about getting trademarked or trademarking your business name. It's about securing and protecting your rights and having evidence of that at the federal level. Because it's very hard, if not impossible, to enforce the trademark rights that you have without a registration. And more importantly, you could be accidentally infringing on somebody else and not realizing it. And so the main reason to secure a trademark registration and get that Circle R symbol is to, number one, make sure you're not accidentally infringing on anybody else.
Yeah.
I see this all the time in the podcast space.
I bet. Yeah.
People come up with a name. They're asking me, Joey, should I trademark it? Should I get the trademark registration? And then we look into it and they're upset because they can't trademark it, but then they're upset because they realize that somebody this whole time has had a phrase or word for the name of a podcast that might not be the same, but it's similar enough.
In those cases, is that similar enough person? Are they using it for a podcast too, or for like anything, and it just doesn't matter? Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravy.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravy.com/CHM. Now back to the episode.
So this similar enough question is very hard to give black and white answers to. And that's also what makes this really hard, is because when it comes to naming things in business, whether it's the name of the business, podcast, courses, we as business owners have been trained to think about names in a very domain name kind of way. Like we have an idea, we check to see if that exact version is taken as a domain name or on social media or as the name of a podcast. And if what we want to use is slightly different or is varied, then we move forward. The trademark office actually denies most trademark applications. Like over 50% of trademark applications get denied. And the number one reason for the denials is because it was too similar to another pending or registered trademark.
Okay. Interesting. And with what you were saying about the TM versus the R, literally in thinking about like questions for this episode, I started noticing how many logos we see for big companies or even some smaller ones who have that next to it, where you don't really see it because it's quite small until you're like looking for it.
I will never be able to watch a sports game like at a stadium ever again without noticing all the TM and Circle R symbols. Like it's ruined that experience for me. But it's, and I'm glad you circled back to that, because that's a really quick win from this episode. If you haven't yet added a TM to your business name, to your podcast, if you have one, of course, if you have one, by all means, add that to it. But realize that you also want to make sure that you're not accidentally infringing on somebody else. And that's the real importance of running a strong trademark search yourself or hiring an expert, a trademark attorney to run that for you.
Yeah. Okay. With the TM, when you say, I just want to make sure I'm understanding you and listeners are, but like with the TM beside our name, when you say we can all do that, do you mean we can, I could just randomly be like Breakthrough Brand TM without doing anything else? Or you're saying starting that trademark process and then adding it?
Yeah. Great question. You don't have to do anything to start using that TM symbol.
Okay.
If you really want to make other trademark lawyers happy, you can use the SM symbol instead of the TM symbol, which shows that you're claiming a service mark and what you're providing is more of a service and not a product. But that is like a legal distinction that no one else cares about. So like, if you're like, Joey, what does that mean? Just move forward with the TM symbol.
Okay. Yeah. That's okay. That's helpful to know. Yeah. Something we don't often think about. And with that too, so I talk about this as a website designer, but like copywriting on your website, how we see so often in the footer of sites, like the little C and then like, the name of your business, 2020 or whatever with it. How does that work? How's that different? How's it similar? All of that.
Great question. So the C symbol stands for copyrights. And copyrights and trademarks are both intellectual property. They live under this umbrella of what's called intellectual property or IP, which is those intangible rights that businesses have. And what's different from copyrights than trademarks is trademarks really protect your brand. Copyrights really protect, like for a lot of us, like our content.
Yeah, okay.
Like works of authorship. So if you're a photographer, then the photos that you take are protected by copyright. It could be the videos in a course, or like this podcast episode is protected by copyright technically. And just like trademarks, where you can automatically have these rights just by using them, or you can register them with the Copyright Office for extra protection. One major difference here is that in the trademark world, when you get your trademark registered, you get to use that circle R. Mm-hmm. In the copyright world, even if you have a registration, your only symbol you can use is that circle with the C in it.
Okay.
So you can use that whether you've registered your copyrights or not. Registering your copyrights, I will say, it's easier to do than trademarks. They're more likely to be accepted than trademarks, but we have so many copyrighted works in our business that it can be real overwhelming to feel like you have to register all your stuff. So that might be a topic for another podcast.
That does sound like it would be, but it is helpful to hear that of just like, because I get that question of a lot of like, Elizabeth, I see you have a C in your footer of your website. Like, did you like pay somewhere to like copyright it? I'm like, no, I actually just put it down there because you can do that. So I think that's helpful for people to know and have that confidence so like they can claim the content on their website, their blog, podcast, all of it as their own in that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As your business grows, there's this framework that I teach my students of like first understanding what's going on and what the laws are here, then starting to put some foundational layers of protection in place, and then patrolling your rights is really that third and final stage to the process. And a lot of business owners skip over this last step because it's not the fun part. It's not the sexy part. Everybody loves contracts. It's like an easy fix to what you want. No one talks about enforcing the contract. And how you might have to be the bad cop sometimes and sending these emails when people are, again, not paying you on time or doing some scope creep and asking for additional things, or completely going against the terms of the contract. It can be really difficult to know how to respond because contracts don't enforce themselves. So the one thing that we're now working with more and more people on is giving people very swipeable templates that they can use as like canned responses for those hard situations.
That's cool. Of like what to say when when a client's being challenging in that way with like a contract, you mean?
Yeah, like how to really take I don't know about you, Elizabeth, but I have been on the risk, like in that side of looking at a screen, trying to type up something with a difficult client.
Yeah.
And it really takes the overwhelm out of the entire experience when you can just copy and paste something that you wrote before.
Yeah. Oh, that's so helpful. Yeah. Yeah, I love that what you said of how contracts don't enforce themselves. And that's so it's like it doesn't stop there with contracts or with any of this like trademark stuff, all of it. That we have to, like you said, like enforce the rights of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, going back to trademarks. Yeah, sure. I have a question about that. I have so many questions I could ask you. I mean, I feel like we could jump all over the place with all the legal stuff. But with trademarks, I mean, you mentioned in the beginning that there's like different stories you could share of like why this matters. So if someone's listening and they're like, hey, that sounds nice, but like, do I really need it? Like, what happens if I don't have a trademark? Could you share some like things you've seen happen when people aren't using one?
So we had, and I won't say any names here. We've had a client who has this pretty well-known podcast. And as most of, I think, the online business owner community can relate to, she was going on vacation, which is like a huge, like finally taking time off, putting the laptop to the side. She planned this out to be with her family. When the plane landed and she turned her phone off airplane mode, she saw in her email inbox a cease and desist letter saying you have 7 days to change the name of your podcast. And so she had to then take that entire vacation time to figure out a new name, new graphics, new all that stuff. And then let her audience know. We have had course creators who do quarterly launching. I know, Elizabeth, you and I know that like quarterly live launch model. We've had people who are on their second or third round finally getting into Facebook ads. And this is the, one time in the quarter that they're making money for their business. And the wrong competitor sees their Facebook ads and says, hey, we own a business that's doing something very similar. You have to change the name of your business or your framework or whatever it is, because our customers are getting confused when they're seeing your ads.
Yeah.
We have another business coaching client. If I mentioned her name, I'm sure people might know who I'm talking about. Going back to what we said earlier, she had this idea of what trademarks were before she started her business, had a name for her business. And now that she's well over 7 figures a year, it came to her attention that someone else actually has a trademark or something really similar that they aren't going to give up, that they're now enforcing against her. And so it's much more difficult to rebrand and let your entire audience know of a rebrand when you're at that kind of a size.
Yeah. And gosh, those are like, oh my gosh, like feel very like horror stories. Oh yeah, and one thing those stories all make me think of is like how important it is to look before you name, like you're saying, of like the rebranding process being like, that does sound really horrible. And I'm actually, I'm coming out with a course next year for designers, and I'm in that naming process. I have a name idea that I have not shared anywhere yet.
Cool.
But I am like, okay, so like I have the name. I have done what you said of like, I've looked domain names. I've looked on Instagram. I have Googled to see like, are other people using this name for a course? If I am thinking like, okay, I want to also make sure it's not a trademark issue. How do I just search? Like, what do people do there to figure that out?
So the easy way to search is to run a quick search from the trademark database. So you can go to uspto.gov, short for United States Patent and Trademark Office. And you have to click on a couple buttons from there. But if you click on like trademark, run a search, a couple more buttons, you'll eventually get to this search dashboard.
Okay.
And you can search for whatever words and phrases you want. This is nowhere near as helpful as like Google. Yeah. So you have to be mindful in the search results of if whatever you type, if there's another business that's similar to it, it may or may not pick that up as a result. Yeah. It's really just meant to look for exact matches unless you know how to do that like Boolean language to search for different things. And so that free search is great to do what I call a knockout search, to make sure that no one has or is claiming exactly what it is you want to use. But if you want to run a more strong search, cast a wider net to see what might be available, that's probably a sign that you might want to talk to an attorney. I do have a program that walks people through how to run stronger searches. Yeah. But in your situation, in terms of having a name for something that you haven't launched yet, I'll share a little ninja tip for you, which is that, and don't try this at home, hire a lawyer if you're going to do this strategy, but there's a way to file for a trademark application before you even started using the trademark publicly.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of our business owners, especially larger ones or ones who are putting a lot of thought into a name, they really want that thumbs up from the trademark office before they put too much time and attention and money into the branding of it.
Yeah. That's smart, because like you're paying, oftentimes a designer for a logo, you're doing a whole sales page around that particular name. Like that would stink to have to change it.
Yeah. Well, and I'll also say this. We've talked so far in the past in terms of horror stories about people who have had to rebrand because of this being a difficulty. We didn't even touch what happens if you actually want to fight it.
Yeah.
Like if someone accuses you of trademark infringement and you actually want to defend yourself, it will cost you on average $200,000.
Oh gosh.
So if you think about it that way, the investment of just proactively calling dibs on it can really save you money as your business is growing down the line.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, for people listening who, like, what would you suggest we do? Like people who are like, I already have a business name right now, or a course name, a podcast, whatever it is. And now they're like, I've literally never thought about trademarks for this. What would the first step be?
So honestly, my first step would be to check out this free training that I do.
Yeah, I just signed up for that too. I think it's the free. I think awesome. It's the one you're about to talk about, at least. It was awesome. Yes. I started watching the video yesterday.
So I have a framework that I teach that helps a lot of my clients, a lot of my students. It's called my RAD strategy. So ready, aim, done. I've touched on some of that in this episode, but if you enjoyed this and you want to go a little bit deeper with me, I'll show you some things, my strategy, and some other quick wins that you can take from that just free training alone. And again, it's my RAD, R-A-D strategy. So the link to that is just joeycvitale.com/rad.
Okay, awesome. And we'll link to that in the show notes. But yeah, that sounds really helpful. And it is like, you've made a lot of this feel very simplified, which I so appreciate, because it is, it's hard. Some of this like legal side of a business, like I actually have a meeting tomorrow afternoon where I'm starting to file taxes as an S corp, but I'm an LLC, but changing that. Well, how are you describe it? I feel like I can't even describe it correctly.
It's complicated, but yeah, electing S corp status.
Yes. And I listened to your episode on your podcast, which we can also touch on, but you talked about the difference between S corp and LLC. And it was mind blowing to me, because I'd never had that explained correctly to me. I thought they were different things.
Really?
Yes. And I was like, I'm an LLC, but now I'm becoming an S corp. And then you made me realize I'm still an LLC. So I was maybe we talk about that for a second. I think that would be interesting for people.
Sure. And I'm glad you touched on that. A lot of people don't realize what's happening here. Yeah. And attorneys and CPAs, I love them, but we're not the best at explaining this. And honestly, a lot of business owners who aren't super kind of boots on the ground on this stuff with CPAs, we get it wrong too when we talk about it, unless we really understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. So an S corp is this weird thing that a lot of people get excited about, because there's a way of becoming an S corp or electing that S corp status might help you save on taxes. And we all want that. So a lot of us are like, oh, then like, what can I do to be an S Corp? The weird thing is an S Corp is not a legal entity. All it is a tax status. It doesn't give you any type of legal protection or save you in any other way. And if you're an LLC so far or a sole proprietor, you're automatically taxed as a sole proprietor if you're the single owner of the LLC. And so that sole proprietor tax designation may or may not be the most helpful thing for you business-wise. It really depends on how profitable you are, if you can afford to put yourself on payroll and pay yourself as an employee and all these other things. But if you do talk with an accountant or a CPA and they agree with you that S Corp election would be wise, you would still legally be an LLC. You would still have LLC on your contracts, all of that. It's just that whenever you send stuff to the IRS, you would be filing those taxes as an S Corp.
Yeah, that was so helpful. And I'll link to the podcast episode too, where you expand on that, because it was a pretty short episode, but still more like 20 minutes maybe of you talking about this. And it was like, oh my gosh, I'm still going to be an LLC and I've been explaining this wrong when I'm asking. I literally told I have the meeting with my accountant tomorrow, and I was like, I want to become an S Corp is like how I'm saying it to her. And then I knew she just, I think, thought I just was confused, but didn't explain it to me of like what I actually was saying. So,
well, and it's like when people come to me and they say like, I want to get trademarked. I know what they mean. We talked about that earlier in the episode. I know what they mean. I know how to help them, but it's helpful for them as business owners to understand the distinction between those automatic common law trademark rights that they already have and the fact that this registration that I'm helping them get is something different.
Yeah. And I'm going to be like, right after this, I'm going to be searching and seeing all my stuff of like, wait, what is like, can I trademark this? All of that. So yeah, it was really helpful. Before I have some rapid fire questions for you, but before that, like any last thoughts that we didn't cover on trademarks that you feel like people should know about before diving into your free training?
Yeah. The only thing that I'll say is that I know that the naming side of things, it can be really emotional. And finding out that a name that you started to get attached to might have some trademark problems with it can be really difficult for a lot of the business owners that I work with to see. And if you're hesitant to kind of open that door to see what's behind it, just know that if you do see things there that look problematic for you, feel free to reach out. We do have some exercises and guides on naming techniques that will help you come up with an alternative name.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm sure that's helpful. I mean, yeah, naming stuff is hard. Even I think like for me, the naming of this podcast was really hard. Every time I came up with a name idea, it kept being taken, even just looking on like iTunes to see. And so, it can be very emotional when you're like, oh, this is it. And then it's taken. So that's great advice. Okay. I have a few rapid fire questions for you. Just fun ones to help people get to know you a little better and offer some different types of advice. So first one, a favorite business book that we should read.
There's this book that I love that no one knows about. It's called The 3 Laws of Performance.
Okay.
It'll change your life.
Okay. Awesome. Wait, so it's a business book, or like, what's the context of it?
It's really more of a book on like leadership.
Okay.
In the context of business, it basically talks about how important it is for you to perform to get results you want.
Okay.
And how a lot of us aren't performing as effectively as we can be.
Okay.
And I know that Elizabeth and I are in some coaching programs together that are all kind of very mindset heavy. This makes you rethink things in your life and how you're operating in a way that feels like you're almost working with a coach. but it's not very like mindset or woo-woo.
Okay. That sounds awesome. Wait, say the name of it again. 3 Laws.
It's the 3 Laws of Performance.
Okay. I'm going to check that out. That does sound up my alley. Okay. You said you're a 90s kid, as am I, even though I did not know Lion King reference, which is embarrassing to everyone listening. But your favorite throwback, like 90s TV show?
It's easy. Boy Meets World.
That's a good one. That is
My dog's name is Mr. Feeney.
Yes. Okay. I saw you share about that. Where was that? Maybe in that video. Maybe it's in the training. You mentioned that.
I think it is.
I love that. That's hilarious. That's a hilarious dog name. Okay. I love Boy Meets World as well. Okay. Last one, a random business software or a tool that you use in your business that maybe people don't know about.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, so you probably already have this, but if you have Slack and if you have Zapier, we recently created a new set of like celebration channels inside Slack using Zapier.
Oh, cool.
So now every time that someone schedules a call with my team or that we get any kind of purchase, it fires a message in Slack saying like, so-and-so just booked a call or so-and-so just bought this program.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's really cool for my team to just see in real time and then to just be able to scroll up and see all of it.
That's awesome. So that's similar to how I have Zapier text me when I make sales. So I guess that's like a similar setting then, but just saying that they enrolled and stuff.
Yeah, we have a team of like 6 or 7 people now. And so it's really nice for the entire team to just kind of see the impact that they're all having.
I love that. That's a really cool integration. Okay. Awesome. Okay. And last thing, just tell everyone, I mean, we already talked about your free training and we'll link to that in the show notes, but where can everyone find you, talk about your podcast, all of it, and get your help, everything?
Yeah. Thank you. So you can definitely hang out with me on Instagram, please. You can find me at Joey C. Vitale there. And then my podcast, thank you for the shout out. It's called Owning It. It's about 3 months old. We're on our 20th episode now. We've already got over 100 reviews. And the goal really with the podcast is to make it the most helpful legal-ish podcast that's out there. And so it's a combination of like squarely legal episodes, like LLC versus S Corp, and then also like legal-ish topics like taxes or, enforcing contracts and mindset work, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've enjoyed it. I mean, you get straight to the point. A lot of good content there. And podcasting is fun. Have you enjoyed podcasting so far?
I love it. There's something, and thanks for saying that they're short. I'm
so long-winded. My shows are not short, so.
I guess the way that I podcast, or at least recently whenever I do solo episodes, they're very just like, here's what I want to say, here's what I got to say, and it's done. Like I was that kid. I grew up Catholic, and sometimes there would be these like young adult groups with like prayer circles, and there would be certain people who would say things for like minutes. And I'm like, I have nothing to say other than like this sentence. So I would just kind of say my thing and then it would go on. So I've always just been like, I've thought a lot. Here's like my 2 sentences.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, that's fun. I love short episodes. I know my shows are typically 45 minutes to an hour, but I still feel like I get to the point just with longer content, I guess. But I love short episodes.
I think it's a gift. I'm so envious of people who like keep people's attention for long periods of time. And we're just now starting to do interview episodes, which can be longer more naturally for me.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. Okay. Well, awesome. Thank you seriously so much for coming on, for all the information. I'm excited.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the podcast this week, friend. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you about something. I would encourage you to check out my website template shop. Over on ElizabethMcCravey.com, you'll find Show It website templates, and they are easy to use, strategically designed, and created to help you book more clients and customers. Maybe your current website is really boring. I don't know. Maybe it is, and maybe you don't want to hurt its feelings, but you know it's true. And your website needs to be strategically and intentionally designed in order for it to convert your viewers into raving customers. And that's what these website templates do on MShop. These are pre-made website templates built for the Showit platform where you can plug and play your content into the template with ease and then get started with a website that is made to actually make you money. Isn't that what we all want, right? So go shop the templates at elizabethmccravy.com/shop. That link is also in the show notes. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so that you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate it if you left a rating and review for the show on Apple Podcasts, or even just share it with a friend. It's a great way to support the show and then give us your feedback. So thanks so much for listening.